Hey, what is up ladies and gentlemen, I am Tiana here once again and I'm back for some more yet again for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to more of Let's Play of Kirby's Adventure Wii, / in American version it calls it Kirby's Return to Dreamland for the Nintendo Wii. So, last time we have managed to able to go through World 1, which is essentially Cookie Country. In addition with that, we also managed to take down the forms of Wispy Woods once again, and also we managed to able to gather about 13 energy spheres in total, and also we managed to restore one of those pieces in Lore Star Cutter. So even then, today for this episode is the fact that we're going to be hit on to the next world in Kirby's Adventure Wii / Kirby's Return to Dreamland, and that appears to be Raisin Ruins. So, gotta think about it though, similar to the forms of how it does in Kirby's Adventure / Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland, is the fact that in each and every single world, always begins in with the forms of the first letter between those words as far as I'm aware. Like, recently we got ourselves Cookie Country, and now we got Raisin Ruins. I mean, what's next? Well, we'll find out until whenever we're able to get towards the end of this video. So, yeah, today's day is the forms of the 7th of January in 2020. So even then, no, not too shabby for the most part though, apart from this one little nitpicking with this though, but we'll point it out whenever we're able to get to it. But as you can tell, basically for Raisin Ruins is the fact that it's basically a desert themed world. You know, kind of like how it did in one of those worlds in the forms of Kirby 64 the Crystal Shards, if I recall correctly. And then here, we actually come across it to ourselves into the introduction to the new copy ability that has been introduced in this game, and that appears to be a whip ability, which this allows you to able to whip, just like how cowboys usually do. And basically, you can able to aim it from multiple directions, or if you keep pressing the one button, that you can able to do some sort of like a rapidly whip attack or something like that, which I seem to very glad about the fact that this particular ability will make its return, or maybe, I don't know, it has been a couple of days since actually going back into this game potentially, so, but I digress though. So I think, let's just get rid of the forms of the whip ability from now on, because we need to get ourselves the fire copy ability ready, because there's going to be the first energy sphere that we need to find. So hopefully we can find it for sure, and that is definitely by the forms of that specific rope here. And in that way we can able to actually hop onto that cannon, and then hopefully eventually we might actually get something very rewarding after doing so. Stuff like, as I mentioned this before, the energy sphere is just beyond over here. And be very careful of that bottomless pit, by the way, because you know with these little lines, as you can see from that black spot right there, that actually represents the bottomless pit. So yeah, it's have to stay sharp on that one. So, and let's just go ahead and get the needle out in case if we need some specific parts, specifically when it comes to collecting some stars for some extra lives every now and then, or even some protection when it comes to likely some of those enemy encounters we might actually come across. So yeah, a few things we want to explain about this actually, because you remember in yesterday's video about the fact that recently Piglet and Daffy was expecting there's going to be a Nintendo Direct at some point this month. Well, thankfully though, we got one, but however though, I will admit though, it is a little bit disappointing to me though, and as it appears to be by the forms of, well, recently that Nintendo has just announced there was going to be another Pokemon Direct, but this time around though it's going to take place in the forms of 9th of January in the forms of 2020. I'm guessing for the majority of the Nintendo Directs at this point now, especially because of how the fact that we on, you know, 2020 as of now, I would surely that it might actually go back onto the forms of Thursday uploads compared to the forms of how it does it on last year's Wednesdays. So I think I get the relative for that specific points worth noting for, but then again though, it's a little bit too early to predict for this point right now. But yeah, that's as far as it will go. And I believe for that specific Pokemon Direct is going to come up on this Thursday, if I can recall. And that particular Direct will be able to get ourselves 20 minutes on specific stuff, which, I have to be honest here, or in this case, I have to be brutally honest here for this point, guys. I think this is getting ridiculous, in my opinion, because, well, it kind of does the same thing by the forms of 2019, but at least I get the point with 2019 because of an announcement with the next installment, which is of course Sword and Shield. But why 2020 from the very beginning? I mean, usually it kind of does like some sort of like an opposite thing this time around compared to the forms of how it does it in 2019, because we get the proper Nintendo Direct, the general one from the start, and then later on it gets a Pokemon Direct, which I'm fine with. But why opposite? I don't know. I'm really sorry for this point, guys, because I know I felt a little bit too critical about that specific part, but then again though, we'll talk more into that as soon as we're able to actually just to get on with the next world, assumingly on, you know, this Thursday in general, because as to be expected, this is uploaded on Tuesday today, so even then though, because, you know, we have to deal with that specific recording sessions system, as far as you might as well notice by this point. So, but anyways, that concludes level 2-1. And by the way, you know what that the third and the final energy sphere that I managed to got? Well, in order to actually get to that, is that you need to acquire the hammer copy ability, and that way you can able to, you know these little steel blocks as you can see right there? You can only destroy them by simply only using those hammers. Or, alternatively, if you manage to use the multiplayer mode, then you can able to select King Dedede, because, you know, King Dedede does have his hammer ability after all, so that way you can able to actually bust out those blocks as well. So, definitely recommend if you do that, if you don't have that specific copy ability for that point. So, another new copy ability that has been introduced in this game, well, technically speaking, that it does make a return ever since in Kirby Fright to the Finished 100 episode movie from the likes of Kirby Right Back at Ya, and that appears to be by the forms of, well, water ability, or in this case Water Kirby, which this allows him to able to actually spew out some water if you manage to stand completely still and press the 1 button in the process, and then also you can able to actually just have a little bit of a surfing ride kind of syndrome if you manage to able to dash forward at one form or another, which is pretty cool though, especially because of how the fact that, although one thing is a little bit weird, is that it actually, well, compared to the forms of how it does it in Right Back at Ya, you know, the actual TV series I was talking about, unlike in that particular version of Water Kirby that's been firstly introduced, basically what happens is that Kirby doesn't go automatically in watery blue compared to the forms of how it does it in the forms of Right Back at Ya's final episode. So, but yeah, I'm very glad that Water Kirby was a thing though, so, and also we got ourselves the returning stone ability right here, and the reason why we're going to be able to get ourselves the stone ability because, well, we need to activate that specific stump, and then once you do so already, then you would get yourselves the first energy sphere in level 2-2. I think at this point in time though is the fact that in each and every single world, some of them contains like 1 to 4 levels, but eventually it might actually go slightly longer when it gets to likely in the future worlds and beyond. So even now, we'll talk more details onto that whenever we... Oh, really? Oh, man. We're going back into the forms of the previous games, aren't we? Where it comes to likely... Yeah, if you somehow get hit by the forms of certain enemies, if you have a copy ability with you, if that copy ability got out of your system, well... Unfortunately, you can't get them back, because the only thing you can only get them back is when you go onto the out of the servers. So, which I think I might actually also do that in Planet Robobot and Triple Deluxe, potentially, and even Star Allies, but then again, though, we'll point it out whenever we get to those Let's Plays in time. So, anyways, though, so let's go ahead and swim underwater for a moment, because... we need to come across into ourselves that specific secret area that we must able to find, such as this door over here. And we need to bust out these blocks, by the way, by simply able to blow at that blocks to begin with. And if you enter in here, destroy that bomb block over there from the left, not the right though, because if you activate the one on the right, it activates like some sort of an ambush trap. So we need to be dead on with the forms of the left bomb rock, or bomb block I should say, so that way you could able to potentially get the idea of what the actual rewards you can get is, of course, the energy sphere itself. But anyways though, let's go ahead and move on to this next section by simply able to get onto this warp star, so that way we could able to continue things on from this point here. And let's go ahead and use that specific water abilities and stuff like that. I haven't really looked upon that much movesets to begin with, to be honest with you, because then again, it has been about 2 years since we actually last touched upon, you know, Kirby series of Let's Plays at this point. So, excuse me, I got something on my throat there. I do apologize for that. So anyways, if we go continuously going up, we got ourselves another ultimate power right here, or ultra, you know, Kirby abilities. As you can see, this time we have Flare Beam, which is basically, it's more likely a much more stronger beam, but unlike in any other, Ultra Kirby abilities, like the Ultra Sword, and especially noticeable with the Monster Flame abilities, is that, well, it does it for you by simply able to pressing just one button. In this particular ability, as you can see, next to the ones in the future worlds, you can actually just manage to able to take control of the actual beam itself, as you can see right there. But even then though, that until whenever we get to the later worlds throughout the game, specifically in World 4 perhaps, that it also might actually do some sort of a similar thing, but except, well, just the different kind of things we can able to do it from. So once you destroyed that specific you know, weird looking objects, as you can see right there, then that way you can able to see there's actually a dimension portal just beyond on the left. And it's not that hard to able to find around here, so once again we need to run away from that, specifically that shifting wall over there, so that way we could easily avoid that. So just in case you really don't be bothered to able to fall down or anything like that. So but yeah, as far as everything else, as far as I'm aware for this point today, well, then again, we'll talk more about the forms of the Pokemon Direct announcements during at some point this Thursday. But then again, what makes this pretty disappointing compared to the forms at the beginning of 2018, well, at least in 2018, at least we got ourselves the Nintendo Direct Mini of all things. But and same applies for 2019 as well, despite we have to wait until in February for that time. But at least we actually get ourselves some interesting infos during later on in 2019 as far as I'm aware. But I just wish they were able to actually bring us something new for, let's just say, bring something new for Mario and stuff, because by that point in time, specifically in 2020, we might actually come across into ourselves the 35th anniversary of the Super Mario Bros. Series, of course, which I'm really looking forward to it though, ever since in 2010 and 2015, because, you know, we got Super Mario All-Stars Wii port on the forms of 2010 in the 25th anniversary, and also the 2015 contains Super Mario Maker, as it marks in the 30th anniversary of the actual series. But I'm just really hoping they're actually going to be bringing a new Mario game to the forms of 2020 at some point. But then again, unfortunately, we've only just got Pokemon Direct, and that's it. I don't mind Pokemon too much, but it's just that I think to me that we had too much of those stuff at this point in time, especially when, you know, in 2019 we've only just got 2 of them. Well, mind you, in 2017, at least we've only just got 1 of them, which I'm perfectly fine with, because later on you're able to decide to join along with the forms of the normal Directs during the forms of the past few years. I'm really hoping that won't do it again until likely in 2020, because, well, we've got 1 already, but I'm really hoping they won't add another one. But I get it because of how the fact that they'll add something new to the table for Pokemon series, like the new App Store system, which is of course Pokemon Home that is about to come, and hopefully something surprising. But then again though, I'm not a huge Pokemon fanatic to begin with, in my opinion, just because, well, I don't normally play that much of main games specifically. At least I had a good time on my nostalgic games of all time, which is of course Pokemon Snap for the Nintendo 64, and same applies by the forms of Puzzle League, despite how difficult that game can be on harder difficulties, and also the same applies to have a decent time on Poke Park games, basically. So, but oh no, it's just not my kind of thing, to be honest with you guys. But either way though, then again, we'll point that out at some form or another, but then again, we'll talk more details onto that. But I really can't guarantee that Daffy and Piglet were able to mention more on that, because obviously they're going to be focusing on Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games still. But you know, you probably get the drill for that point. So, but aside from everything else though, well, that's it. That's just not much else I can even decide to talk about. There is nothing interesting happened so far. I think to me though, 2020 was actually gone pretty much in a slightly not so good of a start of the year in my opinion. Well, usually in a decent kind of start of the year, but then again though, because of my expectations, wasn't nearly as high as I hoped, but it's probably just me anyway. And also, what's missing about the forms of that content edition? Well, besides we got Animal Crossing New Horizons until you know, for the next 2 months, but then again, I'm not exactly a huge Animal Crossing fanatic, I have to be honest here, just because, well, I've heard of it, but I've never actually played one of them, so even then, it's not my cup of tea or anything, but I'm sure most other fans seem to be able to be, well, super excited for it, especially that recently, during the forums a few days ago, that I haven't mentioned about this, especially when Defi and Piglet has not mentioned about that either, and especially noticeable that, well, Mickey has not mentioned about that during the forms of Super Mario Kart Let's Play so far. They just got ourselves a new trailer out of nowhere, and then also we get ourselves the actual box art of the actual game at long last. So, as far as I can tell, it looks kind of similar to the forms of Animal Crossing New Leaf box art, except, well, it obviously takes place in the islands as opposed to the actual town. So, seems interesting enough, but then again, I'm not gonna get it straight away, just because, well, I'm not exactly a huge Animal Crossing fan, to be honest here. I know everyone else is different and all, but, oh well though, beggars selves can't be choosers, I suppose. And as you can see, we have ourselves these returning Kirby abilities. One of those returning Kirby abilities, as you can see here, we have the returning high jump, which basically behaves exactly like how it did ever since during the forms of the previous Kirby games, ever since in, well, let's just say when it first started in the forms of Kirby's Adventure. And just like the forms of the previous games, basically, you can able to just jump high and all that stuff, and that's all there is to know when it comes to that specific ability all in mind. And also that you can able to actually charge up your, you know, high jump ability, so that way you can able to get yourselves a high, you know, highest jump as you could, so that way you can able to actually jump ridiculously higher as you able to actually just to, well, proceed to this next point of the forms of the levels themselves. So, but anyways though, let's go ahead and take down King Do, as you can see right there, which is basically, it's like Waddle Doo, except it's more accurately, it's like a bigger version of Waddle Doo, and also he was practically in yellow, so relatively speaking, he actually behaves exactly like Waddle Doos and stuff like that, except, well, a lot bigger than the forms of how it does here, those Waddle Doos basically. So anyways though, and speaking of which, we do need to get the beam ability out, probably because of this bomb block, and because of that, once you bust this out, then you get yourselves another energy sphere, in addition with this next one-up as well. So, yeah, it's not too bad though, and it's not that complicated if you manage to get the hang of it though, so it's not too hard or difficult or anything like that. And I believe the final energy sphere for this level is the forms of using those cannons, and, well, they behave exactly like how it did in the previous games, basically. That if you time your blasts and what have you, then you can able to actually just blast onto those different parts throughout the level. So, and the one we need to aim for is on the far right, so that way you can able to get yourselves to your, what else? The final energy sphere. And then once you're done with that, well, you can able to actually end off the level just like so. However though, it wasn't until whenever we get into Kirby Triple Deluxe, and especially noticeable with Planet Robobot, and even especially noticeable with Star Allies as well, that it actually contains somewhat of a secondary collectible, but then again, we'll point that out whenever we get to those Let's Plays potentially. Well, despite the fact that we have not got the 3DS capture card still, probably because of how the fact that it might be pretty difficult to hold off. Excuse me, I got something in my throat there again, but oh well. Alright, almost to stage 4, and nothing's unlocked just yet, apart from we got ourselves the first sub-game, which appears to be Ninja Dojo, or Dojo, as far as I'm aware. I'm actually really looking forward to that sub-game though, but then again though, we'll point it out after we're done with the actual main adventure first. So, anyways, let's bring out the bomb ability, just in case, that we can able to enter in the ruins itself. So I think this time around though, as you can see, that we need to now collect about 5 of those energy spheres. Luckily, the final 2 is going to be somewhere at the end of the level, which is specifically all in one place. So hopefully we can able to actually just find the final 2 as soon as we're able to continue things on. So this first energy sphere that we need to grab is that obviously I really recommend you able to use the bomb copy ability, because when you've done so already, bust out these blocks over there, then you notice there's actually a switch over there, which if you activate it normally, it opens up the door just like so. But if you somehow manage to able to, well, activate it normally, then it just closes off automatically. So instead, we need to take down that Kaboo enemy right here, and then just place the bomb by simply pressing directional pad down and 1 button at the same time, so that way you can able to lay the bomb on the floor right next to the switch was, and eventually when that bomb explodes and then the switch actives, and then quickly rush to the forms of that specific 1 second open door, and then that way you can get yourselves the first energy sphere. So it's not that complicated. Or as another alternative thing you can able to do is the fact that you can also use the multiplayer by able to let one player press the button for you, and then the other player can able to get the energy sphere for you. So, you know, kind of works how it does it by the forms of new Super Mario Bros. Games, or even the other energy sphere I was on about earlier. So the next energy sphere is the fact that it's over there. Now if you're probably wondering, how do we get there? Well, we need to hold up for that candle, and then basically we need to navigate for that specific dark room, and in that way you can able to find yourselves the actual, well, energy sphere. And this particular room always reminds me of that one particular level, and I think it's specifically level 2-3 or level 2-2. I'm pretty sure it's likely 2-3. That in New Super Mario Bros. Wii is that we need to go through the actual darkness room, and then you can simply just barely see what's happening on here due to the forms of that specific candles placed on that specific tiles, as far as I'm aware, which it always kind of reminds me of that specific level from New Super Mario Bros. Wii, basically. And here we need to take on the forms of this new mini fight, as you can see right there, the water Gobberos, which I do apologize with the actual name pronunciation for this point, but whatever, we'll just have to accept that. So basically we need to able to take him down, and well, we need to able to actually just do it just as so. And we'll go ahead and get ourselves the water copy ability to begin with as well. So hopefully we would, you know these little fire blocks that you saw right there? We can't do it normally, but it wasn't until you get yourselves the water ability. As you can see, it actually just managed able to actually have the ability to destroy those fire blocks, which even then, you can able to actually just do, well, stop the fire, and then you can able to break it in the process, which is pretty cool looking, I have to say, because even then, yeah, it really does rock though. So even then, let's go ahead and spit the water from here, and then get the 1-up in the process, despite the fact that we've already got 13 extra lives. Yeah, if you couldn't tell already, it's that like any forms of Super Mario Galaxy and Super Mario Galaxy 2, and especially noticeable with the previous game, the previous Kirby games for sure, my lives counter is actually, well, reset. But it wasn't until in Kirby Star Allies came around that for some reason it actually keeps your extra lives for you. Like, I did manage to demonstrate that on my own time, and sure enough, they actually kept my extra lives after doing so. So, a little bit weird though, but hey, it works for me though. Despite how easy that game can be. But anyways, we got ourselves a new object, as you can see right there, which appears to be this little invisible crystal, which if you hold there, you can able to actually bypass through all sorts of enemies, and especially noticeable, you can able to actually bypass this little invisible, invisible crystal wall, which that way not only allows you to able to bypass that specific crystal wall, and that's why we managed to bring it along with me, because of that third energy sphere, which is actually not that difficult, I don't feel like. But either way though, let's just go ahead and move along here. I'm pretty sure we're almost done with this level though. It's just a matter of, you know, trying to get ourselves the final 2 energy spheres for this point right now. Then once that's been done, then I think we might actually guarantee what's going to come up next. Specifically, the next boss fight that we need to fight against. But you know, we'll find out until whenever we make our way to the end of World 2. So, and hopefully we should be able to restore the next piece of Laurel Starcutter ship. So, yeah, that's how it goes, basically. So even then, no. Once again, we got ourselves the Ultra Sword here, ever since in the very first level in the game. So relatively speaking, we can able to do what else? Some more cutting. So, but the only thing we can't cut is, of course, the actual cannons themselves. So, but either way, though, I'm just like, whatever. We'll just continue as normal as far as I'm aware. So, anyways, though, so, and that's pretty much all I can say about this, basically, though, for those discussions to make. But, sure enough, though, we'll talk more details until on Thursday, so I'll promise you guys for this point. So, anyways, once you cut for this particular segment, as you can see right there, then obviously the next portal dimension will be, well, opened. And this time, oh goodness gracious me, we're almost gonna get crushed by the, well, that shifting wall from the right. So now we need to avoid the shifting wall on the right and go to the left. So, a little bit different compared to the forms of how it does it on the previous portal dimension segments. So, at least I'm fine with that. So anyways, let's go ahead and keep on using the super inhale move. And then that way you could able to swallow up the gray blocks, as you can tell. And, you know, just continue as so much so. So even then we could expect us for doing so. So anyways, let's go ahead and use the bomb block to destroy it. And hopefully we would deal with this last part from here and avoid that huge cannon here, and then quickly dash our way to that door down there. Oh my goodness gracious, it just slowly catches up. Oh man, things gets a little bit crazy, doesn't it? So anyways, let's go ahead and use the sword again, but hopefully for a different purpose of the fight. So, of course, we actually come across into exactly the same Sphere Doomer, but except now we have bottomless pits now. At least depending of if you're almost gonna get smashed onto the forms of, well, if you're continuously smashing those little blocks, as you can see right there. So, oh great, looks like it's gonna make things a little bit tricky and difficult, but hopefully I could able to actually deal the amount of damage on him. Oh, no, 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 no. Whoa! Jeez Louise, man, that was so close. I almost died right there, but luckily for me, I think I did somewhat fully recover from myself or something. I don't know, it's just a little bit of a convenience, that is. So anyways, we got all the energy spheres for this point now for level 2-4, so let's get the heck out of here for that specific location as far as I'm aware. So, and I think that pretty much takes care of the forms of level 2-4, so yeah, this world is not that hard either compared to the forms of the first world, so yeah, there's not much else to discuss. And why do I always keep on getting number 2 right there? I just don't get it. But oh well. At least we got enough extra lives as it is, so that we can able to, well, survive as long. And it looks like, yeah, we got ourselves the next boss fight, which, conveniently enough, though, once again we have 5 stages, but it's gonna be a different villain or a different boss for once. So, anyways, so let's go inside here, and yeah, it kind of reminds me of almost related to Kirby's Epic Yarn almost. Is that, well, at least if you go to these boss levels, as far as I'm aware, you can able to actually see that little cinematic animation whenever you're trying to see what's gonna happen on the boss door or something like that. So even then, it kind of reminds me of Kirby's Epic Yarn almost. But anyways, now let's go ahead and move on to, you know, the next boss in the game. As that appears to be a genie itself, or to be more accurate, Mr. Duta, which basically, he's pretty simple if you get the hang of it though, although I highly recommend you able to utilize the whip ability if you manage to get the grips of it, because I think you can able to actually deal the insane amount of damage if you keep on just rapidly pressing one button if you get close to him. But naturally speaking, it's not that difficult unless if you're trying to aim it upwards, if you could try. And also that, just like in any other Kirby games, is that if you want to deal with even more damage on the, you know, the normal boss fights as far as I'm aware, you can able to utilize that star projectile as what some of the bosses may actually, well, retains itself, and then that way you can able to deal the amount of, you know, a larger hit point, which, truth be told, we accidentally get rid of the the whip ability, but that's fine because that way it'll deals a lot of damage for this point here. So, but there we go. That takes care of Mr. Dojo. So even then, we're able to actually get ourselves the next the shift parts for Lord Starcutter parts. And I think this one is actually the right wing of any sorts, because, well, we'll find out until whenever we talk to Megalore again, if we manage to make our way back. So, but luckily the game automatically does that for me, so even then we can able to see, you know, another cinematic going on around here. Specifically, well, one of those parts will be placed on that specific Lord Starcutter, as you can tell. And, you know, we've already got about, I think we've got about 5 parts left. So that will be the left wing, and especially noticeable with the other 2, which then again, we'll point it out whenever we're able to continue things on with, well, the later worlds, as far as I could say. You did it, Kirby. Yeah, thank you. My Starcutter has its right wing back in place. So once we find all of the parts, and this baby can fly again, I'll take you on a trip to visit my home planet, or in this case for my, you know, just home planet in general. So I think this will be important later on, though, if we manage to able to, well, I don't know exactly if I can explain this just yet, though, because that again, we just managed to able to got the beginning point out of the way, though. So even then, yeah, that's all I can really must confess for this point. So yeah, it's not much discussions for this point here. And let's go ahead and hop onto this world map again. And we can able to approach onto the 3rd world, which is none other than Onion Ocean. Was this like a food-related world? Like, we got cookie and raisin, and now we got onion. So, yeah, I guess it's more likely related to food, basically. So, yeah, I guess we'll end things up here. So join me until on Thursday for more of Let's Play of Kirby's Adventure Wii / Kirby's Return to Dreamland. Is that we're going to be hop on to the 3rd world, which is none other than Onion Ocean. So see you guys on Thursday. So see you then. Later, fellas.